running for President of the United States of America.
In front of a packed house in Charleston, Nikki Haley came out swinging.
America is not past our prime. It's just that our politicians are past theirs.
Afterward, we sat down with the new presidential candidate who's preaching a message of generational change.
Elected officials should come, do their job, and leave and let fresh blood come in. That hasn't happened. And so we have to have term limits in Congress.
That mantra also means running against former President Trump.
You had said at one point, obviously, that you would not run if he did.
David, we have lost the last 7 out of 8 popular votes for president. I think it's time for a new generation. I think it's time for someone who can speak that in a way that we bring more people in. And I think it's time that we focus on the fact that we can't keep talking about old issues and the status quo.
In order to make it past Trump or anyone else for that matter, the former UN ambassador and South Carolina governor will need support from the evangelical voting bloc. And she's making a case on abortion, saying it's time to pursue certain limits now that the High Court has overturned Roe.
They can have the debate on whether that means 15 weeks or 10 weeks or 6 weeks. But let's at least start with the fact that we don't think that abortions up until the time of birth is acceptable. And let's accept the fact that we do want to save as many babies as possible and then go from there.
What is the pitch specifically to those key primary voters, the evangelicals?
So the first thing I'll tell you, there's no pitch. I am a person that every day walks with my faith on my shoulders and knows that I can't get through a day without God. And so I don't need to pitch anyone. I think they see it. I think they feel it. I think they know who I am.
After growing up in the Sikh faith, Haley converted to Christianity, and her announcement speech included an evangelical flavor.
Do not be afraid. Do not be discouraged, for God will be with you wherever you go.
Plus, a prominent pro-Israel evangelical pastor delivered the opening prayer.
The senior pastor of Cornerstone Church, John Hagee.
He is loved in Israel. He's loved in America.
That represents a lot about what you are about, God, Israel, and the Judeo-Christian fabric of this country. Is that the way you see it?
Yes, and we don't need to go away from that. We need to dig deep. We need to pull into that.
Double down, if you will.
Absolutely, and that's why I wanted him to be here, because I knew he'd set the tone like nobody else.
Haley says the tone set by Joe Biden is a morally dark one, especially when it comes to indoctrinating children on gender ideology.
Many evangelicals see this as a spiritual battle of what's taking place in our country today. Spiritual warfare, if you will.
It absolutely is spiritual warfare. This is about parents and children and their church. And all of those issues need to be decided at home. They don't need to be talked about in schools. They don't need to be spread here. I mean, all of this wokeism is trying to change the core of what the family is.
It's a very different America from yesteryear, something Haley would like to recapture.
The biggest crisis I see is the national self-loathing that has taken over our country. I mean, the media has really gotten to where they've told Americans our country is bad, our country is racist, our country is rotten to the core, and that's just not true.
Haley's candidacy comes at a time when the current GOP power players want an America First agenda that steps back from funding wars like the one between Russia and Ukraine.
I don't think we need to put troops on the ground. I don't think we need to write them blank checks. But they have the passion to fight for their own freedom. Give them the ammunition to do it. If they lose this fight, Russia's not going to stop at Ukraine. They're going to go into Poland and the Baltics, and we've got a world war on our hands.
Right now, Haley faces a different kind of battle and takes the field without ever having lost an election.
May the best woman win.
Nikki Haley will now move from her home state here in South Carolina to the early primary states of New Hampshire and Iowa later this week. It's a key time for Haley because other than Trump, she pretty much will have the stage all to herself, trying to convince voters that she's the one they need to choose, and that GOP primary field is going to get very crowded very quickly. David Brody, CBN News, Charleston, South Carolina.